Could we talk about China, because it's in great proximity to where we are at the moment? What are some of the opportunities in, say, some of these coal seam gases in China at the moment?
I'm happy to start. I think China is a great case study because, as you could seen from Justin's slide, China has the biggest technically recoverable reserve for shale gas. And in terms of shale oil, is ranked number 3, just behind the U.S. But in terms of production, if you look at the production numbers, the U.S. is the largest producer in the world of oil and gas these days. But China is way, way, way behind. In fact, about a year ago, the Chinese government has revised the production number by about 50 to 70%. They were estimating that the production will be around 50 to 100 billion cubic meters per year. They actually, revised it downwards to 30 million cubic meter for the future. So I guess the question is why, China being China, with the amount of financial strength that they have, why they can't make it work. What I understand is that essentially there are 3 issues that you need to look at. Commercial, technical, as well as the legal side. In terms of the technical, I'm sure Scott and will correct me if I'm wrong. What I understood is that in China, the reserve is clearly very different. In the US, it's like a plate. So it's pretty much just kind of like a flat plate. But in China, the reserve is apparently like a plate that has, broken, and then somebody stomped on it. So it's very fractured. It's all over the place. And I spoke to somebody from Shell who worked on this in China for Shell's joint venture with the Chinese SOEs. And he told me that they have tried many, many ways to try to make it commercially viable. So they have some issues about that. And the other thing is that if you look at the map of where all these shale resources are in China, they are in mountainous area. The best basin is actually in Sichuan. I think most of us remember back in 2008, they have a big earthquake. And because of it's in mountainous areas, in terms of the infrastructure and all that, it's extremely difficult to get to. The other issue that China faces is water, which if you need to frack, you need a lot of water. And, with the resources all in remote areas, mountainous areas, you need to get water to those areas. Infrastructure is a problem, and then if you get the gas out, how are you going to transport the gas? Now, the China domestic pipeline infrastructure is not fully developed yet, so there's a lot of work that needs to be done. So you get gas in a remote area, but the consumers are located elsewhere, so you need to transport that. That's the other problem. And then in terms of commercial, the gas prices in China are regulated, so it is actually below international market prices. In fact, there's a subsidy right now, which is about 0.4 Chinese yuan per cubic meter. That's only for production until this year. In April this year, the Chinese Ministry of Finance actually announced a reduction in the subsidy. They said that for the production for 2016 to 2018, it's going to be reduced to 0.3 yuan per cubic meter. And then for subsequent years until 2020, it's going to be 0.2 yuan. So it's actually decreasing. So that's the problem. And then on the legal side, there's actually 6 ministries and agencies involved in regulating shale production in China. And to get all these agencies together and come up with a framework that work has been difficult.
How about you, Scott? What are your views on China?
Well, I think certainly, as we mentioned earlier, the potential is huge. You did a good job of summarizing a lot of the major issues. In the United States, we are blessed with having infrastructure, having had production for a long time, and that certainly helps in these new areas. As you can see, we've been struggling a little bit with infrastructure in some areas, but we've been able to accommodate that because of the other infrastructure being able to adjust. In China, I think just keep in mind that every coal bed methane or even unconventional reservoir is not the same. So you're going to have some good ones, you're going to have some bad ones, and getting to market is going to be a major issue.
Okay. So do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I guess, in terms of the capital investment, I think the speakers have all highlighted that for unconventional, the capital investment is pretty high in the beginning because unlike conventional, there are a lot of things that you need to do. And so you would imagine that the Chinese companies, the big SOEs, CNOOC, CNPC, and PetroChina would have the financial capability to do that. In fact, they do that. But the problem is, I believe, from what I've read, that compared to the conventional oil and gas, the returns they get from the conventional is actually much better than unconventional.
And what factor would that be?
Okay, the problem is, as I mentioned, there's a technical issues with the Chinese unconventional. So you need to put in lots more money to develop it compared to the US. Actually, what I understand, about 3-4 times more expensive to develop a well in China than in the US. So that's the other problem. And so if you are a SOE sitting in China and you have a target to meet for production and for your profitability, you will see, it's a competition whether you should invest in conventional or unconventional.